My name is Adama, Alaji, and I am the heraldess of the Eternal Order. I'm also the owner and CEO of Integrity Global Enterprises, doing business as Mother Earth's Blessing Holistic Life Center here in Atlanta. Producer and host of the Meeting of the Inner Circle in its 22nd year, dealing talk radio 89.3 FM WRFG. Atlanta, dealing specifically with the issues of our liberation, our salvation, our deliverance, and our being able to respond correctly and directly to being under a global initiative of depopulation and genocide.
You went vegan 44 years ago. What year was that about?
About 1978.
What was the galvanizing, catalyzing thing? Was it health, ethics, all of the above, or just like something somebody said?
I think it was all of the above, but really just being in a place where I could not justify in my mind why I would be hanging around on earth for the next 40, 50 years, working a job and watch everybody die. Because the projection is that more and more people would be dying regardless of how much education they have, how much money we have. And then the Global 2000 initiative, when I heard about that.
What is that?
The Global 2000 initiative was an initiative to eliminate over 3.5 billion people from the face of the earth by the year 2000.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory.
That is the reality in terms of why I really just had to stop supporting what I refer to as the death industries.
Now, how did you hear about this?
I was at the University of Florida. Those ones who took responsibility for trying to figure out if East Indians keep having babies at the rate that they're having babies, and the Japanese keep having babies at the rate, and the Chinese keep having babies at the rate that they're having babies, and Africans and through Africa are having babies at the rate that they're having babies, and Americans and Black Americans particularly having babies at the rate that they're having babies on the North American continent, then Central and South America. If these people keep having babies at the rate that they're having babies, the world will be overcrowded by the year 2000. So we're going to eliminate over 3.5 billion people from the face of the earth.
Now, who is this we?
Now that I don't know where that came from, but I know that we had always been told that there was a world conquering rampage that some people were on. As a psychology major, I became aware that there were smallpox vaccinations, and Fauci was behind all of this then, right? Smallpox vaccinations going into Africa, right? And they were really vaccinating women who were in sex workers, prostitutes. And they were finding that for whatever they were giving them, they weren't coming down with anything. Their immune systems were so strong. So they would go in and do another series of vaccinations.
And this is in the 70s?
This was in the 70s. AIDS broke out in the same proportion as those smallpox vaccinations. So in my mind, those were not smallpox vaccinations. I never knew that smallpox was a really issue. All of what I was being exposed to as a psychology major, with the sociology minor, and getting the statistics of the dysfunction, the disproportionate percentage of Black people who are affected by heart disease, diabetes, and all of this disease, plus the incarceration, all of the juvenile delinquency, teenage pregnancies, abortion rate, and quote unquote our illegitimate children. And that's when I began to really question.
How did you tie this into not eating animals anymore?
I tied that into really because I began to pray and ask God to really show me what it is, because my professors were saying they didn't know why we have such a disproportionate percentage of us who are affected by these things. Of course, it affects everybody. All right, but for us to be 12% of the population and then 60 to 70% of us are affected by this, and this. No solution. Because of affirmative action, you're a double minority, you're both Black and female, you can get paid for doing the research. And of course, we can show you how to slant your study to prove whatever it is you're hypothesizing, and based upon the applicability of that research to science or to medicine or to intelligence or education or whatever, you can continue to get paid. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's when I really started praying and asking God to show me what it is.
through prayer, you came to the realization that you need to get rid of eating animals.
Through prayer, I decided that I do not want to support those whose businesses, the meat, the dairy, the eggs, the chicken, the alcohol, tobacco, sugar, it wasn't just animals. It was all of the things that I was realizing were foundational in the disease state,
Wow.
right?
And so you
it's
cut all that out.
Personal economic
Right then and
boycott.
there.
I'm not giving you my
Was this like just one day, or was this like something gradual?
It happened in a relatively short period of time because I was able to really experience the clarity of mind that put me in a position where I didn't have to study. I mean, literally pour over my books all the time. I mean, I could read the chapter, I could retain the information, I could go to class, I could hear what the professor was saying, and then I could form critical questions. For example, we do deprivation studies, where you take primates or other ones, and when they have babies, you take the baby away from its mother. The longer the baby is away from its mother, the more dysfunctional it becomes, and if you leave it too long, it will die. Now, if you've done those kind of studies, then why would you, and you know that, then why would you have hospital nurseries the way that you do, where a woman will give birth and then the baby is taken from the mother and put over here in the nursery? If you know that, if this is a study, or the other study, when you overcrowd rats, the mother rat will eat her young. So if you're doing these studies and then you're making some sort of analogy or comparison to humanity or to humans, why would you build to really create a sense of overcrowdedness and then see our abortion rate go up? And so I was able to make inferences that I would not have really thought about previously. The clarity of mind allowed me to be able to ask those critical questions. And then because they had no answers, they cried with me. I had a women's studies class, and this woman's husband was foundational in establishing the NAACP out of Florida, right? National Advancement for Colored People, right? She's, with the women's studies course, it's like we can do anything, we can do everything that men do, but she's chain smoking. And I'm saying, you all want to be equal to your man in his madness. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would we want to perpetuate the same thing that's being perpetuated when you are giving me the evidence of how much dysfunction and degradation and deprivation and all of these other things that are now a part of our society, and then you're educating 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We come into college, right? But we've got a pub on campus. We've got 24-hour visitation as freshmen, all right? So we're forced into an adult situation. 30,000 students, 1,500 black. But the issue for me at that time is that I really did not go to school with an intention of getting a good job. My intention and motivation for going to school, one, is because my mama made me. I really didn't want to go. Right? But I had to go. But my orientation was to come to a place where I could figure out how to be the progression of us as a people, as an African and American people, black people, but also as a humanity of people. And you're not giving me any help here. No, I get no support.
That's what I was going to ask. So you're doing something at, how old were you, about like 20, I guess you said?
I was about 20 my junior year.
Did you have any support in isolating yourself from all of these detrimental things?
Well, I began to, it was a personal economic boycott. My spirit was on fire. I was praying, I was asking, I was knocking. I did go and get counsel from the counseling center, and I talked to them about what I was experiencing. and my advisor for my sorority, I spent some time and I talked with her. And otherwise, you know, people were seeing that, one, I was losing waist, right? I was slimming down, I was getting clear, I was becoming more intense about everything. I got so intense, as a matter of fact, people start running this way, going that way. Oh, here she comes. So they go this way or that way. But basically, I didn't have a lot of support. But there were.
Did you ever feel like you needed more support, or did you just kind of roll with?
I pretty
solo?
much just roll with it. But there was a sister who was in the law college, Deborah David at that time, and I think she was vegetarian, and another brother by the name of Wesley Dean, he was vegetarian. And so, but I did not really talk to them about that. They didn't really counsel me with that. This was an internal process for all intents and purposes.
Now, you mentioned your mom a couple times. I guess you had a really good relationship with your mom?
I would say, I would say that my mother and I had a very deep love. She was my first love, my mama, and her commitments for my life.
So I'm sure that you were strong enough maybe to endure whatever it would take to do whatever you wanted.
Well, I tried. I remember being at a phone booth one night, going through all of this opening. Okay. Now, because of how intensely I was praying, it's not just like, okay, I'm just going to change my diet. That wasn't it. I'm like at the threshold of not being present because I don't want to live in this. You understand? So it was an intensity that was with me. I go and I call my mother from the phone booth one night, and it's pouring down. And I say, Mama. She said, what is it? I said, I know. She said, what do you know? I say, I know why it is they are trying to keep us oppressed. She said, what are you talking about? I said, this is oppression. They intend to make sure that we are not thinking. Who is trying to make sure that you're not thinking? I was like, they, who are the meat industry, the tobacco industry, the alcohol industry, we have access to all of this, and what does it do? It makes us crazy. It oppresses us. It's a problem. It's diseasing us. And then she started talking about all of the things that I needed to read, all of the Bible and this and that and the other. And I'm saying, Mama, you're telling me that if I had been born blind, deaf, and dumb, if I could not read the Bible, if I could not hear the story of Jesus, if I didn't know about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all of these ones, that I would have no way of knowing who I am as a child of God. I know we are the children of God, and we should not be dying here. That conversation with my mother put us in a whole nother frequency. Because I was done. I'm like, this is nothing. Why am I going to school?
Here you are, you're in your 20s, and you never, like once you kind of got to that point, you never ate any more animals after that at all. No more milk, eggs, dairy, nothing.
I went from eating everything to having fresh fruit in the morning and huge salads. I wouldn't do potato chips. I wouldn't do sodas. I mean, I was like, these people will not get another freaking dime from me.
And you don't take any medications or anything.
I haven't seen a doctor since I was 19.
What kind of supplements do you take?
I do a lichen. It comes in a natural nature. Somebody provides that as a supplement. I do mushrooms. I do a lot of teas. I do dulse and kelp and bladderwrack and sea moss, and I blend them with my tea. So I'm having the tea every day with burdock, yellow dock, hyssop, oat straw, just hydrangea root, bugleweed, boneset. So I'm getting all of the supplements through the teas.
Wow. So what's a typical day like for you? You get up in the morning and you start off with what?
Water, most days. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll do my stretching. I'll do some jumping jacks. Sometimes I'll do some squatting. I'll come down and put my clay on my face. Right? There's a red clay, so I put on my mask. Mm-hmm. And then I begin to get my distilled water, prepare the clay water for our enemas, and I go around and I pull all of my little glass candles and I put my candles in place. I light my candles and I'm saying my prayers throughout the place.
What is this like 4 in the morning?
I'm generally going to bed about 4 in the morning. So this is like, it just depends. You know, lately I've been waking up at about 8, going to bed 2 or 3 or whatever. It's a lot when you have a business.
What time do you go to bed and wake up?
I may go to bed around 3 and get up around, or wake up at about 8. And sometimes I make myself just lay there.
5 hours, you're talking? 4 hours of sleep?
4 or 5.
Wow.
It's not like I'm forcing myself. I'm forcing myself to stay down because I know I need more rest.
You talk a lot about the cells, you know, and cellular health, things on a cellular level. I'm sure you've heard of melatonin. You know, there's all this science about it and how we should have, you know, this circadian rhythm that's in line with reality of when the sun's setting and rising and all that. But it sounds like you're on a whole nother wave.
I ain't never been on that frequency. I don't know nothing about that, but
Do you sleep solid? No problem sleeping. Once you're ready, you're done? Or what?
I sleep well most times. If I don't, I'm praying. There's always something to do.
Because your radio show, how late is that again?
My radio show, and I'm 22 years, midnight to 3.
Oh, that's the reason why you're up.
And I'm only on Thursday nights, but I have, in the 22 years, I've done several different shifts. But the genre of radio is called Night Watch, right? And Night Watch is really talk radio that really is to highlight issues that are concerned for Africans throughout the diaspora. All right, and so I started this in 1999 when I closed my restaurant.
Is this something people could tune into anywhere in the world?
Anywhere, WRFG.org.
And they can go on the line, yeah. Okay.
But then even before then, I had my jewelry. I haven't had a job since 1992. So from 88 to 92, I worked for a metaphysical book distributor called New Leaf Distributing. And before then, when I was pregnant with my son, I did my jewelry. So a lot of times I would get my production done at night. And so same thing once I had my store. So, and then, you know, I had a reputation. People would say, you know, Adama, you change people's sleep patterns. I'm not proud of it, but it's kind of like that's how it happens, because for those who really would care to get to know me, that's when they would have to get to know me, because otherwise during the day people are working, we're busy, this and that and the other. I'm in production at night, and so a lot of times I have the time for other ones. And one of the reasons why, when I left my job at New Leaf, it was during 1992. The decision in the Rodney King beating case had taken place, right? And everybody was like, we were just done. This was the only day in the 5.5 years that I worked for them that we closed the phones down, we closed the doors down, we stopped working the day of that decision of those officers being acquitted after the beating of Rodney King.
Now, you started your restaurant, what year again?
In 94.
94.
So this was 92. All right, but this was really the segue, because
The segue into what?
into my leaving the job. I've been there since 1988. I had never had a job for more than 4 months. And so when I interviewed for the job, I said, well, I'll give you a year and I'll be here until I can't grow. The metaphysics, the holistic health books, the sidelines, the incense, the crystal bowls. I mean, I was in my element, actually. So I worked that job like it was mine and enjoyed it. But when that Rodney King decision happened, it just, everybody had to sit down, and it was a workplace of people of all hues and orientation and preference and all of that, and we were like one family, and it affected all of us. And so, but at the same time, one of my brother friends was found hanging at a Days Inn or something in Union City, Georgia. kind of outside of Atlanta. And this is around that same weekend, right? And it's coming up because it's the end of May, right? I used to sit with him. He used to come to my job when I would work in the evenings. And he was very dynamic. He was a prolific writer. But he was angry. And he was mad. And he had been in the military. He experienced incarceration, had done some teaching. He was a martial artist. And he just could not figure how to live in this. And I was trying to really get him to understand that we are not here to succumb to that, because that exists as a very small part of the order of eternity. This is a very small part. All the degradation, the violation, the war, and all of this, it only exists in this realm. It doesn't exist anywhere else like that, right? And so basically I was consciously caring to initiate him into cosmic citizenship, conscious immortality, realizing that you get what you ask for. Ask to be a blessing here. Ask. And so that was during the fall, the winter. We ended up drumming and dancing at a turn of the year calendar frequency. Then in March, I called him. And I said, well, what's going on? I'm thinking about you. You're on my mind. He said, well, I'm just sitting here waiting to die. And then the end of May, I'm sitting with his body at the basement of Seller Brothers Funeral Home in the place where the formaldehyde is stored. He's on a gurney. The dirt and stuff is still in his locks. And that changed me forever. His brother-in-law was doing some type of ritual over him, and then after they finished, and I just sat with his body. I figured he couldn't be too far. And I couldn't be business as usual. I went back to my office under a full moon, and I took off my shoes, and I cried. And I cried because, one, I could not remember the conversation that we had in March, and I didn't see him anymore. And I was busy working and paying my mortgage and this and that and the other. And I made a commitment at that time that I would never be so busy that I could not attend to people. And I took my shoes off and I walked circles and I prayed and I prayed and I made commitments and I made commitments, and I did not put shoes back on for 5.5 years. At that time, I was managing the advertising department and what's called the returns department. And I went to my supervisor, Carol Victoria, and I just sat at her feet and I said, I can't do this. I can't be business as usual. This is not business as usual. And so they gave me like $1,400 and a leave of absence. And I got on the road. Picked my car up and got on the road and went to New York. And then when I came back, it was after catalog season and they wanted to demote me and this and that. And I said, you know, you all could take this job. I don't have to have it. And I walked away from it. And that's when I started doing my jewelry again. I'd started doing jewelry prior to the job, and then I picked it up again. And then I got on the road for a couple of years doing the jewelry until '94 when I got back. And by this time, my mother had passed. And so I took money, instead of paying the arrearage off of my house, I let my house go into foreclosure, and I opened up my business. Mother Earth's Adornments, adornments for the whole being, body, heart, mind, soul, and more. Strict vegetarian restaurant, 14-item salad bar. And it took us 10 months to get the restaurant started. But we went in with the jewelry, my sister friend, Omeka Rich, and I. And we would go, while we were on the road for those 2 years doing conferences and festivals, we would carry our cooler and we would have our salad, and people would look at our table, right? And we had jewelry and we could do custom work on the spot, so we made money when very few people would make money, right? And so anyway, people kept saying, where did you get that? Looking at our salads. Where did you get that? I don't see that here. I said, well, we make this. Well, could you make me one? We didn't have enough to be making people food there. And so the vibe was, we need to do food. We need to do food. And I had an astrological reading done by Brother Carlos, has What's Next Astrology. And he said, little 5 points is your area, Adama. I said, really? He said, that's your area. And I said, but nothing's really vacant in Little 5 Points. But by the time we start looking, restaurant was closing, and so I went into that restaurant. I came from the southwest side of Atlanta to Little 5 Points, and he went onto the south side and reestablished his restaurant. But the 10 months of our working, and we had a $5,000 repair to repair the subfloor and the floor of the kitchen before we could get started. But starting that, when we were able to open that restaurant, that was the most powerful moment of my life. Why? Because I could serve people good, nutritious meals. 14-item salad bar. If you had $5, you could get a full salad. You could get a nori roll that was this thick. My son perfected those nori rolls. But the other aspect of it is that if you didn't have money, you could work and generate money and still eat. What I realized at that point, the health and wellness and health food industry has turned what should be your right into privilege. Everyone should have good food. Right? And so when I could just give food, because my rent and stuff was paid by the jewelry. So I didn't have to really have my prices so high because the food had to pay the rent. The rent and the utilities and whatnot were paid by the jewelry, the custom adornments. We did fabrics, we did candles, we did oils, we did African drums. So the food can be a service.
Fast forward it to here we are now, and it looks like you got a lot of that kind of stuff going on here. You got drums, and I think you said you had a kitchen,
it's a house with a commercial kitchen. I prayed for that, and it showed up, and I was able to get in it. I'm not a restaurant per se.
Yeah.
I do provide meals for those who are on my protocols, and we generally do a Wednesday empowerment circle where we have a practical application and harmonization with the drums and the instruments. And then Sunday we have circle, an empowerment circle. And it's an extension of my radio program. It's an open invitation for people to come and sit, because a lot of where we are now, a lot of our relationships and events create a lot of superficiality. You never know what people are going through. You never know what they need, but what we do know is that we all need love. We all need healing. We all need cleansing. We all need support. And so that's what I provide here, in addition to being on the phone and communicating and counseling and consulting and producing the products, mailing and whatnot. So
Always something to do.
It's always something to do. And I'm grateful. Radio, I just got to a point with doing radio. Maybe I started in 1999 after closing my $1 million business. To do radio, and I don't get paid for doing radio. It's complete volunteerism.
Wow.
But I did have the time to regenerate and recreate myself. And that's when I started doing the consultations and sitting with people and developing the product and doing my own cleansing and getting into these baths and sweating and praying and consecrating. I had the time to really see it for myself. And now I can offer it, that kind of support. I tell people, when I stop generating money, doing business to generate money, then whatever money I get, then I'm going to invest it in life currency. So we have our life currency, we trade it for the paper currency, and then we buy stuff that undermines our life currency. That's why we're seeing so much homeless and hopeless and all of that. But I will invest it in my herbs, my clay, my water, my fruit, and my vegetation to keep me going. Because we will never have anything greater than who and what we already are, but naked. There's nothing that can be given us that is greater than us. And all of the systems that are influencing us would have been in a much better place for their own continuation if they were properly oriented in understanding the responsibility of what it is to be in the exaltation of life itself.
My journey is all about getting people to stop eating animals. And I think that's going to snowball into these other problems that we're having. So with your history in psychology and your vast experience, do you think that eating animals and they're, commodifying animals, do you feel like that's the most quintessential issue at the core of a lot of our societal problems? Or is there something bigger?
I think that is foundational. Mm-hmm. It's foundational. It definitely is, because it charges the blood with violation to feed off of the carcasses of violated beings. And people don't think about it because it's just the way that we've been raised. Used to be, there were those who had little small farms or whatever, and then they would have their own chickens and they would wring their necks and whatnot, and they weren't pumped up with a lot of hormones and chemicals and all of that. And even still, they weren't eating flesh 3 times a day, 7 days a week, right? So this industrialization of murder, and who's doing the murdering? So it's like it's completely antithetical to what it is to be as a being, to be in the business of murdering things. And so it creates, and very few people are talking about it, the kind of mental disturbance that has these ones who are abusive to their wives and their children. You understand, as a psych major, we're looking at the spiritual, the mental, the physical, the emotional, the financial. It's all one thing when it comes down to it. Now, for those ones who've given up the flesh and they're still doing processed foods, or they're doing things that make you feel like you're eating meat, this, that, and the other, it does not provide the body with the opportunity to cleanse from it. And this is what I've seen as a problem with quote unquote vegan vegetarians who have passed away with breast cancer, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, because nobody made a proper estimation or guesstimation as to how much chemical was still in our bodies that are not designed to get out. And the mucus holds them. Now, when Al Gore did his film, The Inconvenient Truth, he wouldn't tell the truth. He didn't tell the truth that 90% of the global warming is by virtue of animal death food industry. He took you to his farm, his family where he grew up, and his people were Black Angus beef and tobacco raisers. You understand? And this is what I realized about old money in America. My African ancestors were the first commodity sold on Wall Street. Everybody has become commodity in this sickness, illness, disease, and death. Because the cancer, the heart disease, the diabetes, and all of that, and then we run to the pharmaceuticals, we go to the doctors, we're having our breasts removed, our wombs cut off, and all of this. It's not just the consumption of flesh, it is the lack and the vacancy of love and the inability to acknowledge the oneness of existence and the right of all intelligences to have the right to their lives, and that their lives would have purpose. Now, very few people realize that there were no cows and horses on the Western Hemisphere before Christopher Columbus came. Saw all of this greenery everywhere, where England had already been to war with Scotland and Ireland over pasture land and whatnot. They didn't really make the connection that the whole Western expansion, when we were growing up watching cowboys and Indians and the settlers and all of that, we really did not, we were only getting a very small view of what was actually happening in terms of the establishment of the cattle ranchers, the saloons, the whorehouses, and the church. Everywhere they put that cross, they had the alcohol, they had the prostitution, gun smoke, Miss Kitty. You understand? I'm just saying, we didn't make the connection. the whole railroad system, so that the grazing of these cows across the country, the murder and the slaughter and the piling up of tens of thousands, millions of buffalo, killing all of these other creatures for the grazing of cows, and then sending those carcasses back to England. Refrigeration wasn't even there before then. So the foundation of the beef industry is really the foundation of the death industries.
I feel like there's like so many things that we could really be talking about,
Right.
but as radiant and beautiful as you are, I'm sure people are going to be curious what on earth you've been eating the last 44 years. So has that changed a lot over the years, or have you been pretty consistent with that?
It has changed, it's refined. When I had my restaurant, or even before the restaurant, when you just come into vegetarianism and you go to your health food stores and you try to do the soy and the tempeh and the miso and different things, and you're getting all of that. So I did all that. It didn't work really well for me. My breasts would swell from soy, so I immediately kicked soy out the thing, out of my regimen.
Even like the whole edamame, just a soybean, even
Well,
if it's organic. And all that?
Well, in my experience with gardening, I met a brother at the health food store, a European brother by the name of Hugh Lovell, who had Union Agricultural Institute in North Georgia. We would really sow the beans as a way to really fix nitrogen in the soil before we plant. But basically, you know, eating them right off the plant, eating them right off the vine was the only way.
You talking about soybeans?
Soybean, you're right. Any of them, right? But the snow peas or whatever. At this particular point, I don't really do beans. I don't do beans. I've been off of, I think over the period, so with my restaurant, say 94, changed my diet in 78. And so basically fruit. Never did the soy milk, almond milk off the shelf. I never did a lot of the things that people do. Fresh fruit, huge salads. You know, I would do, I had like a pan lasagna that I would do. I never did the vegan cheese. I would make a cheesy kind of thing with the nutritional yeast and tahini and oil and herbs. My veggie burgers, I made them from scratch. Never did any of the boca burgers or anything look like meat, taste like meat, tofurkey, any of that. If it looks, I have no vibe for that. Fresh fruit and vegetation. I gave up brown rice, peas, beans, and things probably in around 2000, maybe 2002, wow. 2003. Been off breads and that kind of thing because I realized the amount of mucus that our bodies hold on to. And in my mind, my commitments that I made at 20, let me live to make a difference in this world or let me not live at all. But I realized that when a people take over another people, they never have the people's optimum cellular functioning at heart, right? Just feed them niggas and let them get back to work. So we eat in a hurry to get back to work. Most people do. I just gotta grab something, I just need something to eat. That's how most people are, regardless of hue, right? And so I really am more concerned about optimum cellular functioning and regenerating. You know, regenerating. My being a late night person has taken its own toll with me, so I'm trying to make sure that I do what I need to do in order to keep myself going, to take my liver herbs and do my D3s and, you know, to take care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, nobody will. That's what I know. But the other aspect is that if you feed on a bunch of stuff that has no real nutrition, it's just taking up space in your body. So my vibe is, if you're going to eat that which is going to provide you with some real nourishment.
Okay, so give us some examples. Like, what is the most satiating thing? Because, you know, people want to be satiated.
I think fresh fruit. We do our herbs. We do our tea. I started doing the tea. It's got 40, 50, 60 herbs in it. Brain formula, eye formula, liver formula, nutrients and whatnot. So we have a nice cup of the tea, and I put molasses, and I put coconut oil in it. I put some CBD oil in it. I put my turmeric and whatnot, and I take it all down. All right. If I don't eat for the rest of the day, my cells are being nourished, and I just drink water.
Sounds like Ayurveda, maybe?
I never studied it.
Yeah.
But just to say that the herbs are the food. Herbs are real food. You've heard of Dr. Sebi?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so I've interviewed Sebi. I had a direct connect with Sebi until 2004 when he was working with Michael Jackson and I was working with Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And I would try to get in touch with Sebi so I could get Sebi to talk to Mrs. King. And they were like, sorry, Adama, Sebi's with Michael. So I didn't have a chance to connect them to the two because I was trying to really get her to understand, Mrs. King, it's not that you need raw food, because she was hiring me to prepare raw food. And I'm saying it's not that you need raw food, you need cleansing. We need cleansing. And so this is what I do that a lot of people did not know to do, is a daily internal cleansing, doing that which is going to help facilitate optimum oxygenation, hydration, mineralization, alkalization, and opening up channels of elimination so that the stuff that's getting loosened up can get out. Now, a lot of people who just change their diet, after a while, they think that they have to go back or they have problems or whatever. And then they go to the doctor and the doctor tells them, well, you need more protein. They're having cleansing reactions.
This is one of the questions I usually ask people, like, why do you think people fail?
Because their bodies are cleansing and they do not know to open up the channels of elimination. So the skin is the body's largest eliminative organ. All right, so you've got to sweat the toxins out. And it's best to do it in a bath. It's best to do it in a bath, a hot bath, and people have had Epsom salt baths and baking soda. It alkalizes, but we use a strong bentonite, which is magnetic, so it pulls. So you sweat profusely with this to sweat those toxins out. They didn't know to do that. They didn't know to do enemas. A lot of times they're eating a vegan form of the same stuff that they grew up eating, which means that it's still mucusy. Instead of doing cornflakes and all of that, they're doing kashi, or they're doing granola. And granola in and of itself is a blend where you have the seeds, you've got the oats, you've got the dried fruit, you've got a lot. It's a digestive nightmare. People don't think about it. All of this excess mucus from all the pancakes, the waffles, the breads, the biscuits, they don't stop doing bread, they just go to whole wheat bread, or they go to Ezekiel bread, but they don't stop bread. So they're continually creating more mucus that is binding the chemicals that are trying to get loosened up. And after a while, the skin begins to break out. People get eczema, rashes, psoriasis, boils, it's all kinds of stuff. And that's when I get calls.
So salads, teas.
Fresh fruit.
And what might be in a salad?
My salads, when we had our compost put in rows here, we had all these wild greens. What are they called? Wild greens? It's wild greens. So we had the wild greens, we had plantain that grows up, but basically it's the power greens, spinach, dandelion, plantain. Sometimes I put cilantro, and I've got this mix of herbs that I use from my restaurant that I package and have as a part of my package to give people. That has the oregano, the chervil, the basil, the marjoram, the cumin, onion powder, parsley, chives, all of that, and zucchini, yellow squash, red bell peppers. Lately we've been doing more habanero peppers. In addition to that, okra, sun-dried tomatoes. I use more sun-dried tomatoes than the fresh tomatoes. I don't do a lot of tomatoes, but I'll do the sun-dried tomatoes because it doesn't, if you don't eat the salad right away, it doesn't really spoil the salad like fresh tomatoes would. I do a lot of mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, maitake mushrooms, king mushrooms. I love to do the mushroom blends, and I'll saute them with wakame. I do a lot of seaweed, dulse, kelp, and so all of this is in the salad. The wakame is in the salad. I may do some portobello mushrooms in the salad, lemon juice, lime juice, tahini, a little touch of maple syrup, mix it all up, dress the salad. When I had my restaurant, I used to make salad dressings. I stopped making salad dressings. I just dressed the salad, put it all in there. And Kalamata olives, artichoke hearts, you know, and so I eat pretty well. Sometimes we do put the greens, put pumpkin seeds, wakame in a blender and blend it, and then add hot water to it, and then put the herbs in there, and then put the broccoli. Of course, I put broccoli in the salad, broccoli flowers. You put the broccoli in there, you put your red bell pepper in there, you put your zucchini or yellow squash, blend it all up, put a little avocado in there, your pepper, your Himalayan pink salt, your dulse, your kelp and whatnot, and have that over or with your sauteed mushrooms. We do that. We're doing that quite a bit.
Usually I tell people there's 10 things: beans, greens, grains, fruits, veggies, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. But you're saying skip the beans and the grains.
Yeah, because where we are now, mind you, we're 40 years later. We got more cancer, more heart disease, more diabetes, more, right? So I'm saying, in light of all of that, in order to create the most expeditious cellular clearing, cleansing, purification, you need to do real super nutrients. So if you're gonna call yourself something, be a nutritarian. Get your
That's
nutrients.
what Dr. Furman, you ever heard of him?
I've seen some of his.
So that's his term.
Yeah.
I think he may even have it trademarked.
Yeah, you want nutrients.
Yeah.
You gotta have the nutrients. You gotta have the minerals.
But he's hardcore, and he loves he calls them G bombs: greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. That's his G bombs.
I think this is a part of the difference between Europeans and Africans. African Americans, those of us. Now, Africans on the continent eat a lot of starchy food. They eat a lot of starch, more starch than is needed, but it clogs up the bronchioles and the lungs and the this and the that. Okay.
Now, which starches?
Whatever starches. It's like the breads.
Okay.
They do foods. They do a lot of flours. They do the cassava.
Oh, you mean like processed starches?
Yeah, and so I'm looking at getting as much fresh fruit. So I might have, you familiar with pomelos? Pomelos are like huge grapefruit.
Okay.
They're sweeter than grapefruit.
Okay.
I might do a couple of those. One of those is like filling. 2 or 3 grapefruit, couple of oranges, couple of tangerines. Most people are not eating enough fruit. The doctors are telling them they don't need the fruit sugar, particularly my clients who've been on dialysis. They're telling them only have 32 ounces of water, and you keep having your protein 3 times a day, and the kidneys are already jacked from all the uric acid, carbonic acid. You understand, all of this acid in them, but then 32 ounces of water, and then don't get off the meat and all of this stuff. So I'm just saying, I'm really just trying to get us to be in a place where we're understanding there's perfect and divine design behind these bodies that man had nothing to do with. We're not designed by farmers or pharmacists or physicists or any of them. They didn't design us. And so on the beginning, the fresh fruit and vegetation, whole grains is much better than the processed stuff. But where we are now after 40, 50, 60 years of all of this garbage, we need just simple things.
Cleansing. Yeah. Now, see, I eat whole grains. I don't eat rice, really, because I think it's loaded with arsenic. But, like, I'll eat groat oats, and that's a whole oat. I think that's very healthy, and there's a lot of science to back that up. You know?
Yeah, but the thing is that people are having it for breakfast. It's not cleansing. And I'm saying that what the protocols that I'm advancing is about intensifying the cleansing that the body is already trying to do first thing in the day. So even if you had that, it would not be your break fast. You break fast with fresh fruit that gives you the water, the fiber, and the nutrients. It's easily digested within 20 minutes. All right, so we get our energy. We get our energy going. We generally have our tea before we have our fruit.
Wow.
All right.
Now, some people say teas, because they have tannins, block the absorption or remove certain nutrients. Don't you worry about that?
I don't think we're not talking about black teas and
what kind
and
of
all
teas
of
are you
that. We're
talking
talking about burdock
Herbal?
root, ginger root, hydrangea root, bugleweed, hyssop.
Wow.
You know, podarco, yellow dock, yarrow, Cascara sagrada center. We're talking about other herbs that are medicinals, but the medicinal is the reality of the nutrient. They're more nutritious. The ashwagandha, the astragalus, the St. John's wort, the blue-green algae. I love that stuff. I don't really do a lot of spirulina.
Chlorella? No spirulina.
I pretty much more the algae. But, I'm just saying is that we want more nutrients right now. You understand? When people would want to think, and this is why I talk to people, as opposed to just having a website and they just pick their products. No, let me talk to you. My website cannot talk to you and see where you are and what you've been doing already.
What is your website again?
MotherEarthsBlessing.com.
Okay. And so you have these products on there because, like, I don't know how you would even find half the things that you're mentioning. We want this to be accessible. What would be the most practical way to get in the right direction for the majority of people?
To respect the body's cleansing, need to cleanse.
So how are they going to take that to the grocery store?
Your fresh fruit is your body's natural cleanser. So instead of starting your day with oatmeal and grits and tofurkey and all these things, fake and bacon and all of that stuff, you start with fresh fruit. All right, melons, they should be eaten by themselves. Do a quarter of a cantaloupe, you understand, or a whole cantaloupe. You can eat as much fresh fruit as you like. You understand? But the thing is that the fruit is going to be filling, so it's not like you're going to OD on the sugar of it. It's filling, all right? And so that's how we get started for those who don't want to call me at 678-760-9299 and get life support. So you get some instruction as to what to do, really, and then to really facilitate the cleansing. How often are the bowels moving? All right, what's your weight? So when I talk to people, how tall are you? What's your weight? What's the heaviest you've been? What's the lightest you've been? How long ago was that? What happened? Have you ever been diagnosed? Have you had any surgeries? I mean, I go through a whole system of thought here so that I can begin to look at what they're doing and what's created the issue, and then to give them instruction. One, the bowel needs to be open. What are you doing to open your bowel? That's what the fresh fruit helps you to do. You start your day with oats and grits and this and that, your bowels are going to be sluggish. And when you have changed your diet, then you've got to be aggressive about opening up the channels of elimination. So that's going to be your sweating through the skin, and it's going to be the bowel. Otherwise, the toxins are going to come through the breath, they come through the skin, or they have to come out through the bowel. And a lot of people are afraid of enemas. Oh, well, they say, if you take an enema every day, then you won't be able to have a bowel movement on your own. I said, but y'all don't have no bowel movement anyway. Your bowels are sluggish. You're going once every other day, once a day, once every 3 days. I'm just saying, well, my bowels are regular. How regular are they? Well, I go once every 48 hours. That's not enough when you're trying to reverse issues, and it's not healthy. But that's because we're eating stuff that has very little water. Your breads and all these muffins and coffee, some people drink the coffee because the coffee and the cigarette help the bowels to move. Their bowels ain't gonna move otherwise. Cleanse internally. Open up that bowel, all right? So that and then get into a mucusless dietary program. Fresh fruit, leafy greens, vegetation. The way that the health food industry and those ones, good intentioned, but I can say this, none of them have been committed to the liberation of Africans throughout the diaspora, who primarily are the enslaved people around the world. But those of us who are here who are no longer enslaved, but we work for these people. We drive to make sure that the alcohol gets to the package stores in the community. You understand? So I'm just saying there's a whole mentality that we're wanting to get. This is not about being human eaters or human feeders. It's about being intelligences of existence and being able to truly think. Because thinking is the foundation of your creativity, or becoming vessels of the Creator's activity. So our ingenuity, our genius, our talents, our skills, our abilities, this is what we come not to the marketplace, but this is what we come to give to the world as our gift on behalf of our lineages. All of those cysts and tumors can be dissolved naturally without surgeries. That's what the clay does. That's what the opening up the channels of elimination. That's what the moving and stimulating your lymphatic system and whatnot. And we have so much access to everything that we need right now. So we're not human feeders or human eater or useless eaters, as some would say. We are intelligences of existence, and I'm consciously caring to get us to acknowledge that divinity of our being so that we are not blocking the cleansing. Because that cleansing, when I see people that have all kinds of, particularly now we're dealing with so many ones who have all these tattoos, all this ink. And I'm saying, where do you think that ink goes? Okay, so when they start cleansing, they start cleansing everywhere. Those tattoos start busting out, the skin starts busting out. So you have to be aggressive about opening up the channels of elimination so it can get out. But you cannot guesstimate or estimate how much toxicity the body is releasing on a daily basis. But you can know that if you're not doing meat, dairy, eggs, chicken, fish, flesh, flour, sugar, all of alcohol, tobacco, sugar, and you've done it, then your body is definitely trying to release those toxins.
Couldn't you get to a point though where you're clean, everything's good, and eat some beans? Whole beans.
We're water. Our bodies, we're 80% water. Mm-hmm. Water is hydrogen and oxygen. Mm-hmm. Beans are nitrogen. Mm-hmm. So when you bring nitrogen into the mix of the hydrogen and oxygen, you get the gas. Our bodies are digestion and metabolism and whatnot is producing things. Mm-hmm. So people have gas. We're creating gaseous situations, indigestion.
But that's the bacteria. Now, the thing is that the further it gets down the colon, the more it ferments into the beneficial byproducts like butyrate and all that.
Now, it depends on whose body you're talking about, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, and how well they're digesting and what else they're eating with whatever they're having. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, at this particular point, how do we respond correctly and directly to being under a global initiative of depopulation and genocide, where we become commodity in a system of sickness, illness, disease, and death? We do nothing to undermine ourselves, but then in order to allow the body to truly restore itself, then you have to get to the simplicity.
What about sprouted beans? Like sprouted legumes.
You know, when the Living Foods Institute was established here, Brenda Cobb, she had developed breast cancer and she went to Hippocrates in Mexico. I already had my business in Little 5 Points. I had already been strict vegetarian for 20 years. All right? So she comes and introduces herself. So I take her very first course. All right? So this is Ann Wigmore. So do all of that. Who in the hell got that kind of time, right? I mean, just to be sprouting everything and rinsing and all of that is all well and good, but the bottom line is that for where we are in this particular dispensation, in disease reversal, that's what I'm saying, is that there's a difference between just kind of eating and then reversing your issues through nutrition, particularly when I'm dealing with people who need to lose 100 pounds or women who are having fertility issues.
You ever follow McDougall?
No, never. I probably have one of his books there.
Because like he's like the potato guy, you know, like everything potatoes. I guess that's a mucus thing too,
it is.
right?
Yes.
Even though like the longest living population is like Okinawa, like they eat a lot of sweet potato.
Even with those ones who go all the way raw, mm-hmm, right? And I've even seen ones that now they're doing raw meat. Yeah. Okay, I was vegetarian and I was strictly vegan, but then my body started breaking down, so now I'm having raw meat. Yeah. Okay, they're even doing roadkill. I'm just saying, crazy. But so the issue is really just coming to this place where we want to be in the simplicity of it. The carrot, mm-hmm, doesn't have a seed. Now, I used carrots for a while until I really sat with Dr. Sebi, right? My veggie burgers, I would juice the carrot, right? And I would use the pulp in addition to the grated cabbage and the grated everything and all of that. But then I let the juice sit in the cooler. Now, I got a walk-in cooler, right? This is when I had my restaurant. Let that juice sit, that carrot juice sat for a minute, for I don't know how many days. When I poured it out, it was thick orange phlegm. Apple juice doesn't do that. Grape juice doesn't do that. You understand? So it's actually starchy.
Have you heard of Hallelujah Acres? Hallelujah Acres?
I've heard of
It was. It's actually. It's weird. It's like actually, it was in Shelby where I live.
Okay.
They were predominantly carrot juice.
Right, but see the thing is, and this is my point I was trying to get to. When you give up 90 or 100% of the shit that you was eating,
Yeah.
then you're gonna get real results anyway.
Yeah.
To think that one thing, the one thing that you did created your healing. No, it's the 99% of what you gave up that is going to create your healing. You understand? Perspective and perception. You understand? It really matters. In the Living Foods Institute, there was a brother there who, European brother who had brain cancer. So he did the regimen, all right? Doing the enemas. Enemas are a part of it. You have to facilitate opening up the body's ability to get this stuff out of the system, all right? So they were doing the fermenting and they're doing the sprouting and all of that. And as long as he wasn't working, he could do that. And he did that. When he went back to work, however, and you don't have the same orientation in terms of being based in your kitchen because your whole life revolves around your mouth, right? The cancer came back and he passed away. What we're having to do is create consistency over time. So how it is that I have refined over the years so that giving up the breads and the rice and all of that has benefited because now I can fill up with more cellularly activating.
More alive.
Exactly. And so
Because you gotta cook some beans. Unless you sprout them. Like you said, it's a lot of work.
And I did do sprouted hummus in my restaurant. I did do that. I don't do that now. Every now and again I can have it. It doesn't disagree with me. But my vibe is once I get it, I want to utilize it. I don't want to have to wait for a few days for this to do or whatever. I'm going to deal with it right then and there. And the greens, the seaweeds, the sea vegetables, the sea moss, the bladderwrack, the dulse, the kelp, realizing that the plants under the water do the same thing that the plants above water do. They oxygenate. All right? We require oxygen and water. And the more of that we get, the chlorophyll, people saying, oh, well, I'm doing some chlorophyll. I said, did you get it off the shelf? I said, that's the blood of the plant. Okay, now what plant is it? Okay, most of them are not able to tell you. I'm saying, okay, well, that's barley grass, wheatgrass, other grasses. We're not cows. You need the greens that's coming from your watercress, your dandelion. You need those greens. What can sit on shelves indefinitely is not alive.
One of the things I noticed that a lot of people in the vegan movement aren't doing is eating a lot of sea vegetables. And I keep asking people about that, and you keep bringing it up, and I haven't even asked you about it yet. And I asked Dr. Neil Bernard about it, and with Physicians Committee, Responsible Medicine, he said he wished more people in our culture here would eat more of that, And so I'm really glad you keep bringing that up. Quote, give me a quote that's kind of a favorite of yours.
I don't know if it's a quote. Thou shalt love thy mother, father, creator God, thy Lord, with your whole body, heart, mind, with all of your might. That's the one that I'm really working with. You understand? I left the church at 11, but then when I heard as a child in church, these things I do, you can do also and even greater things. I'm like, yay, that's me. I want to do even greater things. 2,000 years later, we need to do the greatest things. We need to self-actualize, self-realize, harmonize with the will of existence and the truths of existence so we can be restored as the children of God. And for those who don't believe in what they call God, I'm saying whatever that intelligence is that is beating your heart, breathing you, has perfectly and divinely designed you, is blazing that sun, has the world spinning, that's what I'm referring to as the intelligence of existence. You don't have to believe it, but you did not create yourself. You say, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Okay, but I'm saying, okay, food has been turned into a tool of oppression, and then you have the weapons of mass destruction. Tobacco, alcohol, alcoholic beverages, sodas, white sugar, aspartame, equal, all of this artificial colors. These are the behavior modifiers. How do we know that our behavior has been modified? Because we are no longer exalting a full effort in our living. We feel entitled to do things that undermine ourselves. We feel entitled to do things that are truly detrimental to ourselves. That is behavior modification. There is nothing natural about that.
You know, some people call it free will. I don't really feel like it is free will.
That's not free will when you've been under a program of capitalization, let the buyer beware. You've been sitting in front of this television and whatnot. You know, we were, how old are you?
49.
Okay. So my son will be 40 in June, right? So I'm just saying, when I was a little girl, all of our teachers were animals, right? Our teachers were animals. Right? We had Bullwinkle and Rocky and Tom and Jerry. We had the Top Cat. We had all of these ones that entertained us, and they gave us daily lessons. And do you remember, I don't remember the show that it was, but there was a sheepdog and a wolf, right? And they would go and they would clock in every day. Hi, Harry. Hi, Charlie. And they'd clock in, and then they'd get busy. And the wolf would start trying to eat the sheep, and the sheepdog would be kicking the wolf's butt for trying to protect the sheep. And so I'm saying this is how it is in this country. We have those who are trying to mislead and create sheeple of the people. And then those who are trying to put the Band-Aids on the cancer and wake the sheeple up. You know, and it's what we do, and we clock out, and then we get back to it the next day.
Give me a good success story where you've helped somebody, or you've seen somebody get helped or change.
Well, my Dr. Moombi here, my Dr. Moombi, I call her my Dr. Moombi because we used to have empowerment circles at another venue where she was friends with the sister who had that space, and she would just pass by, and then one day she sat down and circled with us. And from that time forward, she has been with me ever since. And she changed her diet, got on her protocols, lost at least 60-some pounds, and she is with me, working with me, been from the beginning. That's a success story.
Nice. Now, how long ago was that again?
So 5 years ago.
Wow.
Right.
And what kind of doctor?
Biologist.
She's a biologist.
Okay, like you got a
immunologist.
PhD,
Right.
PhD in biology.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so that's one of my success stories. Another one of my success stories, I had a brother who started listening to my radio show 6 years ago, and he tried to get his wife on point, and his wife wouldn't get on point. By the time he gets his wife to me, probably March of 2020, she's ready and whatnot, then she gets diagnosed with uterine cancer, cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, one of them. And so we try to get her going. She wouldn't get going. And then by the time they put the COVID restrictions in place, where he couldn't go and see her once she went to the hospital, and she started taking the chemo, and then she came home battered and bruised and whatnot, she ended up passing away the 29th of August. All right, and I was coaching him during the time, and I was trying to get him to really do you, do you, do you. That's gonna help her, right? She passed away. A few months later, January 10th, daughter passes away. The family's eating the same thing. He's 309 pounds by the time the daughter is passing, right, or before. So he got on my protocols that November. The daughter passes in January. And then here a year later, he's lost at least 100 pounds. And he is my right-hand brother in terms of my fixing things and building cabinets and building my little brick wall out there and whatnot. And we've helped him through the grieving process, but he was able to claim and reclaim the rights to his own life. And the sacrifice, we all have sacrificed. People sacrifice for us. And it seems as though it takes people to die before other people get it. You understand how many people died from car accidents before seatbelts were a standard issue? You know, how many people have cancer of the lung and this and that before the cigarette industry was brought to any kind of responsibility? You understand? It seems like we have to deal with somebody has to pass away before we get a grip. I'm trying to stop that. I've had other ones who've lost, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, reversed the cancer. One elder brother diagnosed with cancer of the prostate. He got on his cleansing and whatnot. He get this pep in his step. He's feeling good. He's taking his herbs. He's doing his thing. And then by the time he get back to the doctor and goes through the MRI, they don't want to give him his results.
Because they're confused, I guess.
Why don't, and so it's like, well, they can't find it. And so then they see that they can't find it, then they think that, okay, it was a misdiagnosis or something. I had a situation years ago when I had my first business. Sister comes in and she has the 3-year-old sitting at the table. The restaurant was in the back. She's looking at the beads and we're talking. I'm seeing him spit up. And so I'm saying, what's wrong with him? She said, oh, he just had his chemo treatment. I said, chemo? How old is he? She said, he's 3. I said, well, if he's intended to live a short life, do not allow them to rob him of his life. And so I told her what she needed to do to help cleanse him and nourish him. And 8 months, 10 months later, he's got mucus buildup. She didn't have any more chemo treatment, but she goes back to the hospital, to the doctor where he was being treated. When they saw that there was no leukemia, they filed a court injunction, took the baby from the grandmother, commits to giving him chemo again, and he died within a couple of months. That's not a real hopeful story, but the story is that when she did everything that she needed to do, he didn't have the leukemia. It was gone. And they were just feeling as though it's real. It's a real deep thing when people feel as though they're the gods of the universe and you are supposed to be under them. That you have no rights to yourself or you have no rights to yours. That you have to be beholding unto their system of things. This is a problem. It's a real problem. But I've had many very good testimonials, and I also have had so many ones who fall off and they don't understand that this is not something you do every now and again. It's a daily thing because we ate meat, dairy, eggs, chicken, fish, alcohol, tobacco, sugar, candy, smoked, all of this 365 days a year times 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So when they say, well, how long should I be doing this cleansing? I say, how long will you be brushing your teeth? Well, how long is this package going to last me? I said, did you ask how long your toilet paper is going to last you? Do you ask how long your toothpaste is going to last you? Do you ask how long your deodorant is going to last you? All right, you just go ahead and buy it. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Do the work. Because the point is not just the disease reversal. The point is liberating the intelligence of your being so that you are in harmony with the intelligence of existence, the will of existence, the laws of existence. And that when it comes time, you graduate the class of Earth residency having mastered yourself, realized yourself, actualized yourself, and walked in the knowing that self is God. And you were able to get out the body as a conscious immortal. We should not be dying here. People who change their diet still believe in death. That's why I give the audio files. That's why I'm telling people, keep me in your ear. We should not be dying. We should be leaving. We should graduate the class of Earth residency. We're in school. We've been given time on Mother Earth for the purpose of self-realization, self-actualization, harmonization with the laws that govern our being, and to be all that we were born to be as these living, loving, intelligent, potent, and immortal points of this absolute and supreme intelligence that is beginningless, endless, infinite, and eternal. And that's all of us Don't matter what hue of people you are, everybody is here to serve life, to exalt life. Nobody should be working on behalf of the corporate deities of death. That's what I'm calling a boycott of the death industries. How? Why? Because we need to be exalting life. We cannot be a detriment to ourselves and our children and survive it. And survive it.
How can we clone your energy? What might be the most advantageous thing you could suggest to people for encouraging others?
Is to realize you get what you ask for. Some people will say, you can't change nobody. I say, well, I may not be able to change them, but I can inspire them. I can encourage them. You understand? I can love them.
What about if it's somebody who's not wanting to hear this? You just move on and go to the low-hanging fruit?
Well, the thing is that, I'm not out promoting myself and, with a bullhorn. I've got a radio show, you could tune in or not. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell people, look, I don't even know why you're listening to me. You understand? Hang up, okay? Because you will be held accountable and responsible for having heard the truth. You don't want to live the truth, you don't want to know the truth, then don't listen to me. Because that's all I got for you. Somebody called me one day and say, well, sister, your name was given to me because we're looking for storytellers. I say, well, let me refer you to somebody because I only tell the truth. And so we want women and we want men to understand that real manhood and womanhood is godhood and goddesshood. We're creating worlds all the time. Worlds of impoverishment, exploitation, degradation, violation, sex entrapment, that's being created. And those of us who care, now we can recreate. Because heaven on earth is destiny. Because the earth is already in heaven. The cleaner our bloodstreams, the greater our clarity. The cleaner the air, the cleaner the water. We have yet to really make the connection between our connection with Mother Earth. People think that they're here to save the earth. They say, no, you're not really here to save the earth. You're really here to harmonize so that you can be a blessing while you're on the earth.
Dr. Celeste Raoult, he worked with Al Gore for a minute, but he's trying to create a vegan world, and he thinks we need to create new systems. Felt like something you were saying there was kind of going there.
Exactly, but the only thing that is really guaranteed success upon this planet is the establishment of the kingdoms and queendoms of God. Our bodies are the temples of the spirit that we refer to as God. That I am, that we each can say for ourselves, I am that I am. We each can say that, and there's an integrity that is inherent with I am. You understand? So as an intelligence of existence, realizing, the real I, seeing, actualizing so that we only see the aspects of the diversity of ourselves. It's a oneness. But in order to create systems, you still have to have the clarity of mind to do it. Because each family, each home becomes an institution in and of itself. Our lives are not really shaped by what we get in these boxes that they call schools. Our lives are really shaped by the principles, the morals, and the values of what we lived and saw as children coming up. That's really school, is home. Now, in order to really reestablish the integrity of relationship and marriage, so that we are ensuring the progression of us as a people, then you cannot be a detriment to yourself. You cannot be divided within yourself and then hook up with somebody else who's divided within themselves, and just because y'all got married, and even if you go to church or you go to the mosque, you go to synagogue, that don't mean you're going to have a happy marriage. It don't mean that you can love each other to life. It doesn't mean that your children will be able to see love triumph through situations, circumstances, money, this, that, and the other.
You got to love yourself before you can love others, really.
Right. And to know that the self is God. And everybody has it. And see, this is the issue. Everybody is an intelligence of existence. The intelligence of existence is so beloving, so gracious, so generous that it has gifted itself to absolutely everything and everyone, everywhere. Nobody has to be nobody else to take theirs. Everybody has it. But now you have governments and people warring and killing and this and that. And I'm saying that is because of the defilement of the blood. These people are full of alcohol. They're full of garbage. They're full of filth. When I walked barefoot for 5.5 years and was up in Jamaica, Queens, walking on relatively nothing but glass, and I had on my African fabrics and my jewelry and my headpieces and barefoot, and people are like, "Sister, where are your shoes? Where are your shoes?" And I'm like, "I don't have any." And I was really understanding why they were concerned. I'm walking on all this garbage. But then I realized, and I had the epiphany, this is the refuse. This is chicken bones and hamburger corners and styrofoam and aluminum pop tops and chewing gum and glass from alcohol and all of this garbage from what I call the death industries. That's the refuse. The real filth is in the people. And that's why since 1992, I've been sowing these seeds to really create a global initiative of exalting a full effort in our living to respect the reality that we're divinely designed and we are all here to serve life. Therefore, the death industries have to die. We can't keep fueling them. We can't keep working for them. And those who work for them, I'm encouraging you to create new commitments for your life. There's a greater way to prosper than making sure that children have access to poison.
When you say those that work for them, I think you're talking about those who are buying their products.
I'm talking about people who make sure that the products get to us, right?
But I also feel like it's...
Right, and that's where the mothers and fathers and grandmothers and aunties and whatnot, oh, you gonna deny your baby a childhood?
Yeah, like, I asked somebody that question recently. Do you feel like, raising children vegan is preventing them from joy? Because a lot of times people think, oh, well, yeah, like a grandparent, well, give them some ice cream, give them whatever, and like they're not going to be happy unless you give them this garbage.
But these children, I'm telling you, the children are out thinking the parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was not, I'm telling you, throwing my parents' alcohol away. Mm-hmm. I was fussing at them. Mm-hmm. Why are you all not loving each other? Y'all supposed to be loving each other.
Do you feel like we'll have a vegan world?
I won't say vegan. I'll say the remnants of humanity, those who care to be oriented in the laws that govern life, that there will be a time where people will not be killing to eat. That is destined. There's a book that I had to study in order to read in order to study with my teacher called OASPE. OAHSPE. It's about 1,000 pages. And I read it from cover to cover when I was pregnant with my son. In the first few pages of it, it says that when man began to feed off of, to kill and feed off of the carcasses of that which had been killed, then there became a stone upon his soul. He could no longer hear the voice of God or do the will of God. It also said that in the day of Cosmin, that's what it's called, and this is where we're moving in terms of the global harmonization in the exaltation of life, right? The carnivorous man will have to put away the way of eating flesh. You cannot eat flesh and survive it. You understand? So after a while, in my terminology, those who are the perpetuators of the death industries and those who are partaking of the death industries and those products, if they do not shift and change and step out of that, then death will be their just reward, their fate, their consequence.
Do you think we can get there, though? Because a lot of people think that we're going to probably destroy ourselves before we get there.
I know, but see that's them not understanding the law. We're in the harvest. We're in the justice period. All of the seeds that have been sown in sickness, illness, disease, and death through meat, dairy, eggs, chicken, fish, and all of this. You see in the governments who have created and facilitated the violation and the annihilation of our Aboriginal families, our indigenous families, our African families, all of the imperialism and colonialism and the lie that is white supremacy and all of this. This can't continue to go on. There's no way to survive it. And so so regardless of how much is happening, do you know people are still having babies, right? And right now, the global population, there are probably more youth. And so the old thought and that old frequency, it's got to die. And that's why I work. I won't even say I work. I am in service to ensure that those who reach for me, those who hear me, are receiving the support that they need so that they are the insurance of our progression as a humanity of people to the glory of the lineages through whom they've come. And on behalf of Mother Earth, Mother Nature, all of those creatures, all the blood that has been spilt, and in harmony with the establishment of the eternal order and the eternal government, we are already in the realm of eternity. It is not something that's coming. It is the actuality and the factuality of what is. Quantum physicists will say that we're living in an ever-expanding universe. Galaxy is just no end to this. And where there's a reaction and there's an observer, the observer changes the reaction. We have much more power than we think. And even in something as simple as water, the planet is 80% water. I mean, let's think about this. We're on a planet that is 80% water, spinning in space. We've come from another realm of eternity into this realm of materiality, physicality, corporality, temporality. It's temporary. But we're still in the realm of eternity and we're held by absolute law. Those of us who love the law, to love, exalt, enhance, enrich, cultivate, facilitate wholeness. It ain't about racism. It ain't about any of that. It's about the right of all beings and all ones to have the right to their living and to have right to food and water and that which will facilitate optimum cellular functioning, because we all have our gifts to give. And those who are living on the planet now, this is how intelligent the intelligence of existence is. We're all complementary to each other. We've got complementary talents, skills, and abilities. Yes, we can accomplish this. Yes, we can expedite this process. Yes, we can make commitments to walk the face of this earth as some of the most dynamic spirits and laying foundation for even more dynamic spirits. Yes, we can do this. And we must. Because there is not a freaking thing that we could do that makes more sense than remembering and consciously caring to cultivate the wealth of ourselves, the gifts that we've been given through our DNA, our inheritance, our heritage, and to consciously live to be the difference at this time. So my son, he was in an alternative elementary school situation under a sister by the name of Sister Woody, who had Gate City heritage here in Atlanta. And she had a piece of, they had to fill out this question and answer thing. And when it got down to who is your doctor, he put on there, my mommy. That when he had his class and when he got his grades, he got 5 A pluses and 2 A's. And I'm like, wow, man, that is, I ain't never seen a card like that. I guess you're gonna have to bring them A's up. And so, but then when we get on the road, and I know he got A's in geography, and then we're on the road traveling, and I'm trying to get him to tell me what mountain ranges we're running to, or how to compute the mileage. And that's when I realized that school is only as applicable as you can apply the knowledge. And that the real experience of being and living and traveling and being present is what really is our real education. That stuff that we're getting has been kind of detrimental because it puts us in a place where we are now seeing in cultures that get educated that they no longer respect the who they've come through. Now they've got so much accolade for those who are their teachers. And they're learning something that does not necessarily enhance the value of our lineages, the value of the people that we've come through, because we are literally being educated to be cogs in a wheel of capitalism and jobs and working, but that's not God. That's not what we're here to do. That's another reason why there is so much issue and illness, is because people who are not living in the light of themselves are really deteriorating. I can remember being at the bus stop to catch a bus to go to school at 5:30 in the morning at 11 years old. I'm like, there is no way in hell we should be getting up going anywhere to do anything, particularly as children, at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. That is insane. But we don't think about it. And I'm saying, okay, I don't open till 1. Why? So that I can do my protocols. I can take the time for my prayer. I can get my little, I do my pull-ups and do my jumping jacks, you know what I'm saying? I do my stretching. I got one of those trapeze things on there. I'll get down and hang, you understand? And then I do my prayer work and I can get my intimates done and, you know, and do me. Everybody's moving outside of themselves when everybody's here to do them. To be centered, to get the center, to move from center. But if you never get centered, then this is what's creating so much stress. And then you're eating on the fly, you're eating on the run, you got all of this stuff. And so I'm really in a place where I'm encouraging us, particularly women, not exclusively women, but the divine feminine that is in every man. I don't think that men really develop into who they are if they don't know love. I don't think men really develop into who they are if they don't know sacrifice for those that they love. I think that men become much greater men when they have an orientation towards righteousness and high ethic and morality and godliness. That's what constitutes real men. The system that we're in that is warring against us has kind of socialized men, or those who want to be considered as men, to feel like in order to be real men, you need to be toxic. You need to smoke and drink and eat all kinds of things and, you know, be into the gladiator sports and, you know, into the sex this and all of that. And it's really difficult to have marriages succeed when people don't care to be in the light and the best of themselves.
So what do you do about family members that are maybe a little challenging because they're not living the same way?
I actually got away from them. I actually did.
Yeah.
I had to leave, you know, and I love my family, and the commitments that I've made is to be a glory and an honor to the lineages through whom I've come. That includes those who are with me, those who have come through, those whose names I can call, and those whose names I'll never know. When I show up at the family reunions and whatnot, everybody looks at me and then they're looking at me, right? and I'm looking at my cousins and this and that, and it's like, we don't want to cleanse. We really think that success is success in capitalism. Success is success in business. Success is success in setting goals and achieving them. And I'm looking at success as being able to get off the planet without having died. I'm on a totally different frequency. I love them. They know that if they call me, I got them. But otherwise, I am not trying to be amongst those who, I don't even hardly go out. You know, people say, when you go, you should go out. I say, I really can't find a lot of joy and happiness in seas of sick people. And other people would use that as an opportunity for me to promote myself and promote what I do and whatnot. You know, I prefer for people to come to me and be aware of me in their timing.
Yeah. Some people, when I ask, how do you get started? They say, find somebody who's successful. It sounds like you're kind of like doing that. One of the secrets to success is being with successful people. It sounds like you've mastered that. You know?
Well, I'll say this. Because I've been in the Atlanta community all of this time, and I have had the blessing of having been around phenomenal ones. My teacher, Josiah Oswagu, Hugh Lovell, who not only did the organics, but the biodynamics of food, you know, growing food, 16-acre organic farm. I was president of the board of directors for several years. My son, I would send him up there, you know, and that's why he's still up in North Georgia, you know, gave him that opportunity. And then to be around ones like Dr. Sebi and I've been around phenomenal ones, you know, but I've taken it to a different place in the sense that I'm really not in circle with a lot of ones. People come to circle with me because I'm standing on our responsibility to understand that integrity has to happen at the cellular level. And to be successful in the context of the system, you don't really have to have it at the cellular level. You can climb the stairs and the echelons of whatever successes. The way that they celebrate those who created the death industries. Their names are everywhere. Coca-Cola, what's his face, and Chick-fil-A, what's his face, and, and all of this, all of those ones, they think that they're successful. And I'm saying, they missed it. Those of us who really are championing our rights to real light and real love and real nutrition and real food and real purpose and responsibility and being, you know, in the exaltation and the continuation of life. We're the really ones that are guaranteed success. And we should feel good about being the ones that we are. And we should not be in a place where we allow the system of things to depress us or have us in a place where we don't feel like we should have that. I'm saying, if you don't want to be powerful right now, you're going to miss yourself. You understand? The power is not the power to desecrate or defile or war against people or mislead or any of that. It's the power to discern and the power of decision and the power of commitment and the power of care and the power of love that makes us really wealthy.
See, I think a lot of that comes with community, though, and a healthy community. And, you know, people like me, like I live in Shelby, and it's very small. There's not a good selection of people. And so, you know, I think a lot of people are in my position where,
Right.
you know, it's just, we're pretty miserable, and it's hard to be positive and healthy, because then you start feeling good, and it's like, what am I going to do with this? You know, and around all these people that are trying to do everything totally different. You're immersed in it. I feel like an alien sometimes. I go somewhere and I'm watching all this. I'm watching what other people are buying, and they're putting in their shopping carts, what they're eating, and they're at the restaurants. And here I am just all by myself, like almost all of the time. I don't see how you maintain it.
But that's why I do this. I create circles. I create the community, you know, and I've been about it since I started doing radio. So I'm aware that for the tens of thousands of people that I may have touched in these 40 years, I've been teaching the entire time. There are those who got it and ran with it, and their lives opened up. And we're kind of like trees. I'm planted here, they're planted there, we're oxygenating, we're bringing life. You understand? The community still exists. It's bigger than just the locale. The community of light bearers is bigger. And now we're just in a place where we have the technology to touch the world and to be part of the global family. And so we're having to have our vision expanded for ourselves. You know, and so one reason why I'm so grateful for you and to you for taking this kind of time with me, because I've always known that I should have a much greater reach. And the only way to do it is through media. Now, touching somebody and them taking it and running with it is a totally different thing. So I'm consistently knocking, asking, seeking, and praying for the ability to touch more, but to touch them in a way that it cuts through the foolishness. You understand? That's why when you've been under the powers of Satan, the deceivers, Lucifer, the greedy ones, and the devil, the ones who pumping the poison, then your greatest power is in God. But everybody's not asking for godliness or to be vehicles and vessels of the love of God, the light of God, the truth of God, the peace of God, the poise of God. And that there are those who are, but then they still have to clean up. They got to clean themselves up. And people say, oh, well, you're making judgment. I say, I'm not making judgment. I spend my time helping people to clean up. I'm in service. But at some point, I would prefer to be amongst those who care to create land-based community. We all live in communities, but we haven't, we don't know these people. You understand? But to be deliberately intentional about creating land-based community where we grow food, we have place for mature ones, we're providing healing for those who need to be healed, and we have all of the studio, we have whatever we need for our gifts, our talents, our skills, we're cultivating and we're able to disseminate and send them and touch the world. I prefer it. I see it. I'm visioning. I'm asking. Everybody don't want the same thing. Everybody gets what they want. I'm just trying to create a new value for what it is that we should want and ask for in terms of the greatness of who we are and the faith and confidence in knowing that we can achieve whatever it is we apply ourselves to. But we cannot be a detriment to ourselves and everything and everyone else and be able to survive it.
Yeah, I mean, we do create what we want. I mean, I've seen it happen all through my life, All through my life, I want this, and inevitably this self-fulfilling prophecy comes to fruition, but it even does at my own detriment when it's immersed in people that don't want good things. And I just don't understand why everybody isn't on the same page with wanting good. I don't get that part.
And that's the behavior modification. That's the chemicals. Mm-hmm. That's the television. I have had a prison ministry in the federal penitentiary here in Atlanta. And so I set the brothers in circle. Now we talk about brothers doing all kinds of time, me and the men. And I say, well, what did you want to do? What were your thoughts when you were a little boy? And basically, they wanted to be big ballers. They were being influenced by the Godfather and the cowboys and Indians and the cops and the robbers, and they wanted to have big bank, and they wanted to have big bang with girls and women, and you know what I'm saying? And they got them right into the position that they got into, by hook or by crook, because the system is criminal. And the intention is to make sure that they're creating slaves. Slavery was abolished except by virtue of the 13th Amendment that said that you can continue to be enslaved if you're convicted of a crime. The prison industrial complex is modern day slavery. And I don't participate in the voting and all of that because nobody's consciously cared to change the Constitution, to realize that that document is not current for what is going to reverse these issues, And so we have to kind of bypass the foolishness, bypass it, and deal directly with the laws of life and the laws of God. When I went through my transformation in college, my administrators were seeing how dynamic I was becoming. They say, well, that little sister's bad. We're going to get her into law school. I say, y'all ain't sending me nowhere. Because I just realized that law, man don't make law. Law is an inherent part of existence, just as justice is an inherent part of existence. And that's what we need to hold on to. That nobody gets away with anything. We think they got away. They didn't get away. You just don't know.
My dream is to one day to just live off the land, have a food forest, be outdoors more, and just have these most simple things. And I had this epiphany one time when I was working this regular job over and over and just kind of miserable. I was like, this epiphany was, it seems like we're moving in this grotesque, deadly, dumb, destructive direction. The only fix is to go back in time to when we were just living off the land, but doing it with the most maybe modern tools.
Right.
Would be awesome.
Exactly.
And I love nothing more than getting my hands in the dirt, being in the sun. It's so simple.
Right.
And we're just pulled from that simplicity into this corporate garbage and all these products. Like you said, 90% of the stuff in the store is just, it's all so much garbage. But 90% of the people are supporting that.
Right. And that's why you have to realize the justice is in effect. The harvest is in effect. People have to die.
Yeah.
And I talk to people, why are you calling me? Mm-hmm. Are you coming to me because you're afraid to die? Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, I can't help you if you're afraid to die, because you've been working real hard to get to this point, okay? So you got to not be afraid to die. You have to be willing to really live and cleanse and recommit every atom and every cell of your being to being completely cleared, cleansed, purified, renewed, rebirthed, regenerated, rejuvenated, revitalized, revivified, made whole and resurrected, so that you are a living testament and can give the living testimony of the glory of the victory of the triumph of God. That's why you come to me. I've been through major open heart surgeries. The hospital floor caught fire when my chest was open. I went comatose. My brain was starved of oxygen for more than 20 minutes. I was in an oxygen tent. My mother could see me 5 minutes of every hour. She made commitments for my life. I promise you, Lord, if you let my baby live, she will live to do your work. And then 20 years later, at 16 years later, I make commitments for myself. Let me live to make a difference in this world, or let me not live at all.
It's interesting, when I was taking psychology courses, something came up where it was like, this was part of the therapy, was part of the dialogue, was like one of the questions they would ask, why haven't you killed yourself yet?
Oh no.
Why are you still alive? And I thought that was like an very interesting way of going about it. Like, why am I?
Right.
It's stuck with me for like 30, 40 years now. And you made me think of that. What is your purpose? And that's really what it ultimately ends up bringing you to, is what your purpose is.
Exactly. And people will call me and they'll say, well, I'm 45 years old, whatever. I don't know what my purpose is. I say, that's by design. That's by design. But the issue is this. There's only one real purpose. It's to be. It's to exalt life, right? They said, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I said, you're supposed to be loving that which beats your heart and breathes you with your whole body, heart, mind, with all of your might, right? You're supposed to be consciously honoring your mother and father, the lineages that you represent. You're supposed to realize that everyone is your neighbor and you need to love them like you love yourself. You're supposed to be loving yourself, okay? You're supposed to be knocking and asking and seeking and applying yourself. You have questions, they'll come. You've got to activate your faith. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Now, once you get to that, you can do whatever you like. You understand? It's boundless. It's endless what you could do. I'm saying these bozos are doing all these things that they doing. They ain't considering, well, they're not going to let us do that. Oh, that's not the right thing that they're doing. Whatever they want to do. And I'm saying, when we have an orientation towards securing the right of beings to have the right to their lives, and children to have the right to their future, anything that we do is fine. Just coming to a point where we don't do wrong. Sister called me one night and she says, you know, sister, I've been seeing you in the community and I've seen all of the different phases and changes that you've gone through and whatnot. You know, you used to dance at the parks and on the stage at the jazz concerts, and you had your restaurant, you made the best food, and you did custom jewelry, and now you're healing people and you're on radio. Is there anything that you cannot do? I said, I cannot do wrong. And it just fell out. It was not even a thought. I cannot do wrong. So when you can't do wrong, anything you do will be fine. The issue is being. We're not human doers. We're human beings. It's regaining the sanctity and the sacredness and the divinity of our being. That is our doing. That's why fruit and vegetation, herbs, water, sunshine, fresh air, forgiveness, love, enemas, opening up the elimination. That's why. Because that's how we get to the greatness of ourselves. Let all this out, this extra stuff.
I interviewed this couple named Bob and Fran, and he had a book he wrote. And I just said, read something out of your book. He just opens it to a random page, and he reads about washing a potato. And he said, if you're washing a potato and you catch your mind trailing off in another direction, I can't do it justice, but it was something along the lines of getting back to the potato. Being there at that moment,
Exactly.
washing that potato. And it was just such a neat way of kind of getting in the moment, you know?
Right.
Because they say, if you're in the past, that's depressing. If you're in the future, it's anxiety, but it's all about being now. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Current.